Our next question is around the state's 2023 budget. So right now it includes $150 million for mental health within schools. Do you believe that is an appropriate amount? And what do you want to see done with those funds in DPSCD?
Thank you. So I'm still going to do the budget for the 22 school. I think that the $150 million amount, could be, a good amount, but it should be used in the right and proper manner, making sure that we actually have those mental support people that's on site on the schools that really need mental health. Because when you look at different things that's going on with COVID, different things that's going on in the world, and when I'm a firm believer that when children, they come to school and they act up, I don't believe that no child is born to be bad, but it's circumstances that surround children that allow them to come and they have a place where they can act. So that's mental health is definitely important. And that money that was added to make sure that's there, I think is very important. That support should be there, but I think it should make sure that it's monitored properly and that it's used in a proper manner to make sure that we're actually giving support to our students in our schools.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next question is, in what ways do you think DPSCD should make school curricula more diverse and representative of the student body?
Thank you. The school curriculum, the state of Michigan and what Detroit Public Schools has certain laws and regulations that they have to follow when it comes to the curriculum that we choose. But the school board does play a very important part in that. And being a teacher, myself, I think that one of the things that we're lacking in the curriculum is making sure that we are actually making sure that our children are able to comprehend what it is that they're being teaching. Because one of the things that is in the curriculum is that when we go through these modules and classes that they want to just, do a module one day, you have to make sure you set on schedule, but you're not actually making sure that you go back in that curriculum, make sure that the child is really comprehending. So I think that a lot of different things in the curriculum that are added should be more back into our fundamentals. When you talk about, reading, writing, and arithmetic, make sure that you are able to make sure that the child has a proper foundation, and if they need to go back, then we need to go back to make sure that the child actually comprehends the lesson. But I think that you should also add those support into the curriculum, like financial literacy should be, in the school system. You should have conflict resolution in the school system. You should have things that talk about, how you deal with distress and how you deal with mental health and how you deal with certain things when you're talking about making sure that you are properly prepared, that when you leave school, that you have the necessary things that you need in order to be successful, not just inside the classroom, but outside the classroom. So I think that we need to make sure we bring that support back into the curriculum, how we used to be back in the day, to where we're actually doing things in the curriculum that deals with basic life needs that we need to be successful outside of the classroom as well.
So I think mental health is something that when our COVID dollars stop in 2024, that is something that we've talked about collectively as a board. As we look at what has worked really well with the extra money, what are some things that are non-negotiable? And we collectively have decided mental health, that's non-negotiable. It has begun to be something, really in some spaces, they rebranded, right? And we had a long, extensive conversation at a board meeting about mental health and the stigma attached to it. But the mental well-being, so the well-being of a young person and their support system, because it goes beyond the young person, but offering those services also from the parents and the guardians, because those people too have gone through COVID. Those people too have experienced loss and suffering. And so that then is put on the young person who now has the burdens and coming to the school and they're being tasked with just learning, right? Forget everything else and just learn. So when we started our mental health deep dive, I would say before, we partnered up with the University of Michigan, the Trails program, where every student was given a survey. And based on how you answered the survey would red flag you, the administrators, in terms of this person needing a referral to go deeper. But I think we've got to get more creative about what mental well-being looks like. And so the money that we would put into it is something that we're not willing to pull from it when our COVID dollars stop, just because we've been able to start it with COVID dollars, because we've seen the effects of being able to provide those services. And we hear from the young people who say that they want that support. You know, if people are reaching out, we would hate to be in a space when young people reach out and we have no answer, or we have no resource for them. So if people are saying that they want the support, then we've got to be able to provide it. So is that the right amount? I can't say it's the right amount yet, because at the end of this year, as we go into this year, we're looking at data as to how much in totality was spent and what the impact was on what was spent on mental health. So we'll know how to resource it going forward. And even I will say this too, even for our educators and our staff, they need that mental health support too, because they too have gone through COVID and suffered loss and depression and things of that nature. So we can't expect our adults to be supermen and superwomen when they too are living in this space where they are experiencing some of the same thing that our young people are experiencing.
The amount, I believe, is one that is doable. I would like to see more counselors in our school. And currently the policy is maybe one per school. I'd like to see more than one, perhaps 3 counselors. I'd also like to see more nurses. So we have Dpscd currently for this upcoming school year is going to have at least 1 nurse in every school. But I believe we need 1 to 3 nurses. Some are handling medical issues. I myself have been involved with my student needing mental health. And so a nurse who has a background in that, I think, would be critical. And then you have our special needs population of students who may be taking medication in school or having some other difficulties and challenges while in the building. So I think we need to not have one nurse, you know, trying to oversee that. So additional nursing staff and definitely more social workers that handle different areas specifically as to the population of each school.
I think that they are well spent and will be well spent. The pandemic has caused an awful lot of difficulty emotionally among young people and among older people too, you know, but certainly money invested in mental health is a good place to put money. I agree with that.
Thank you. And Serbi, you are leading us with the next question.
In what ways do you think that that Dpscd should make school curriculum more diverse and representative of the student body?
Well, that's a responsibility that educators always have had to have. Even when I was a superintendent in the suburbs, you know, I made sure that happened. And the case is the same in the Detroit Public Schools. We should be educating for diversity. We should be making certain that our students are aware of the history of members of minority groups, because that has been sadly lacking in some texts for these many decades. And that's certainly a very important thing. It's one of the things that I got in a little difficulty for when I was deputy superintendent in Rochester, because I was doing things in the curriculum that some parents in the school district weren't particularly happy about, but that's a whole different story. But yes, the kids need to be educated for diversity, about diversity. And I'm not just talking about the Detroit Public Schools, I'm talking about the suburban districts as well.
Yeah, so building relationships is the most important thing, no matter what position, just like anything else, any job, any relationship, I mean, any experience, you need to build relationships. And so one thing that I know that I'm committed to is accessibility, being accessible, being able where parents, teachers, staff can call you at any time, and you're able to answer and you're able to provide what they need. And so building relationships is just starting off with communication. having a conversation about an issue, having a conversation about something, being able to find a solution to the problem. And so that has always been who I have been. And if you look back in the archives of Facebook and everything else, there's always been where parents reached out and said, hey, where do I get this? Where do I find this? Who do I talk to for this? And it's always been there. And my phone number is there. People have been calling. My phone is still ringing about school starting back, who to contact, who's the principal of this school. And so all of those things are important. And so people feel safe when they have a relationship with you. And I think that that's important for our teachers to understand as well, because if a teacher is teaching 30 students in a classroom, unfortunately, that's just how it is nowadays with teachers teaching that many students. However, if they're teaching 30 students in a classroom, it is important that they build relationships with each student so they can know when the student's not feeling well, when the student is experiencing a bad time, when the student is really down, because those moments are important so we can focus on and give attention to that student's needs, or we can send that student to a counselor. But we can't do that, as you said, if we have 500 students to one counselor. And I've advocated for counselors on many levels because, again, my aunt was a counselor and she was my counselor in high school. And so, again, and it was the same way. I would go in thinking she's my aunt, so I can go see my aunt. But again, it was her duty, so we had to separate that. But then I was frustrated because I had to wait 3 days to even have a conversation with my counselor. And so I think that one of the things that we should do moving forward is hire more counselors, especially in this post-pandemic era. Hire more counselors, hire more social workers, and hire more people to be resources to our students, because we're not at this point putting our students first. Yet we say that, but we're not, because the resources are not there for our students. So I believe in building those relationships, partnerships with our students, parents, community, because again, it takes a village to raise a child, and we must be that village. As a school board member, as a school district, we must be that village and hold our part of the bargain.
Not being a mathematician, I don't know if it's enough, but I would say probably not. Mental health stems back to parents being involved, parents being appreciated. Mental health is one of my platforms I'm running on, and it's so important because I don't display that I'm having a problem. I might have a problem. That money should be spent to make sure there is at least in the high schools 2 counselors or psychologists. In the lower grades, maybe 1. But someone, again, that's where the family comes in to picture, where students feel comfortable with that person going in saying, today's not a good day. I'm feeling like whatever. So money should be spent to put people into place. Money should be spent to, if the student doesn't feel comfortable, and then there's parents. Parents might not want to come in. So there should be some way that we tie in with facilities that have mental health, that parents covered by Dpscd can go to that facility and speak to someone. So to say it's enough, I would say no, but it's a lot of money and we can work well with that as a start.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say this: 1 to 500 and 1 to 400. Got it. Okay. So listen, right now, coming out of COVID, the state of Detroit, some of our statistics in general in our city, I think it's important that mental health is at the forefront of our minds. We have to support our youth, and we have to figure out how we can have a holistic approach to making sure that we have all the services needed. And do I think 1 out of 400 is good enough? No. We need to consider having a therapist or 2 or 3 in each school, depending on the size of the school. And so I think that there's some research that needs to be done to understand, just understand, is there a model out there that shows what success looks like when having therapists in schools? But I think each school needs its own and any specialized therapists, because there's so many social ills that are disrupting our students and we need to make sure that we have experts in different areas. And so I do think that we should be spending a fair amount of money towards mental health resources, but we also need the best, and we need to make sure those resources are actually getting to the students and they're not spent on just facilities, right? Like we need that money needs to be spent on the appropriate things.